Sports fans, get ready for Sportz-USA. Get sports from a personal point of view from seasoned professionals who've reported and lived the stories. Now let's go to the crew high atop the Sportz-USA press box. Hello, everybody. I'm John Askins, and welcome to this edition of Sportz-USA.com. This evening, we've got Kevin Long in Dallas. I'm in Houston, Tom Russo in College Station, and John Kearns in Grand Junction, Colorado. Guys, it's been a very, very busy week. I'll just turn it over to you guys. If you want to start with the college basketball, there's plenty to talk about.
Great games. I mean, the fact, Kevin called it. His favorite kind of through this, Michigan, kind of.
Oh, I believe that was my favorite all the way through.
Okay. I'll give you credit too then. But, good game. UConn kind of got out physical in the game and, foul trouble hurt them quite a bit early on. First half was ugly, to say the least. So, no, it was a good championship, but the one thing about it, it still kind of bothers me, Michigan, all 5 starters are transfers in this year. It shows you what you can do right now with nil money.
That's right.
You can
go out and recruit the best players and, you put together, a team in 1 year. He knew exactly what he needed. He needed a big, strong center. He needed a very confident point guard, field general, so to speak, and an outside shooter. He went out and recruited. Recruiting's a past tense word nowadays. You go out and you buy.
You purchase the center.
You purchase the people. I mean, even in recruitment, even high school now. I mean, under the court rulings and everything, they're allowed to have legitimate agents representing them before they commit to a college. So you said it during the early conversations we had, the game has changed dramatically. So, and I'm talking about all the games. The playing field has changed completely. So, Michigan, great team. If they hadn't probably played one of their more off games, they would have gone down like the Fab Five. Last Michigan. I mean, the fact that you could look at them and say, talent across the board. They filled the boxes, checked off everything. They had what they needed.
I was impressed with Connecticut hanging as well as they did with them for as long as they did, because they went through such a dry spell shooting. I think you and I were talking, Coach K. They went like 0 for 12 from three-point land there at one stretch. But there was a stretch in the game where there was 9 straight possessions, both sides, where there was a turnover, a blocked shot, a steal. One of the most physical teams I've ever seen, Kevin.
I've said this before, maybe it bears repeating, because it's amusing to me. You're talking about how 5 transfers come in and they win this national championship. Guys didn't even know each other last year at this time. Okay, I'm still waiting for some Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg to take a predilection to Tarleton State or Prairie View and decide we're bringing in the best players. If we got to pay them millions, we pay them millions. And the next thing you know, those teams are at the Final Four. Whole different ball game now.
It would be interesting to me. I wouldn't mind that one time just to see your experiment come to fruition. I think that would be interesting.
Guys, you want to pull your money and let's go out and buy us a team?
I think I've got a buck.
I don't think we have quite enough to even get
a buck in.
Well, the thing about it, Coach, is that it's been that way in every sport all this year, starting with football, in the basketball, volleyball. The schools that want to emphasize their sports that they care about, they've gone out and they've paid players with the NIL, and they seem to be getting results. And now the problem is for the established conferences. And I mentioned to Tom earlier before we went on the air, there's an article that's worth reading by Brett McMurphy, who used to be with Yahoo Sports, now with On3, he's writing the demise of the SEC. And this is the first year that they have gone through all their major sports that they, quote, care about, that it just means more in the conference, and have not won a title. And I think it's a little bit too early to be writing stuff like that, but that's going to get the juices flowing down in the Southeast. And one of the things that he mentions is, in this day of eyeballs, the super conference idea of eyeballs, suddenly when you look at the SEC, they don't have anything except the southeastern part of the country. They don't have the national exposure that the Big Ten now has. Even the Big 12 is across the country now. So I don't know. Is that a plus or a minus?
Well, the footprint that you're talking about, John, I think is real. I mean, when you talk about the ACC spreading from coast to coast, literally, and pretty much the Big 12 does too, and certainly the Big 10 does. The SEC, you're correct, doesn't. It's just in the Southeast. But quoting there, it just means more. All of those big, from the revenue producers like football and to a lesser degree basketball, to the non-revenue generating sports, to the Olympic sports, anytime the SEC wants to try to push something, they usually have some of the best in it. The only problem is, like you said, now anybody can throw money at it, and it kind of levels the playing field, doesn't it?
Well, I can kind of see what you said, John, because you look at what the Big Ten's done this year. I mean, they have, they're the national champion in football. They're the national champion in men's basketball. They're the national champion in women's basketball. They have dominated the sports scene in the major sports so far this year. Now, the SEC is going to have some success. Gymnastics is going to be something between LSU and Oklahoma. South Carolina might be in there too. But, all of them are SEC schools. But when it comes to the major sports, the Big Ten has been totally dominant this year.
Right.
Hey, Bo.
And we've got Bo.
Houston.
Right as we're talking about the demise of the Southeastern Conference, which was an article written by Brett McMurphy. I don't know if you've seen that yet or not. We're talking about suddenly the SEC looks like it's sort of in trouble, he thinks, on the television packages, because they only have the eyeballs from the southeastern part of the United States. They don't have the national, footprint like suddenly the Big Ten and even the Big 12 has. Is that a plus or a minus, Bo?
No, we've talked about this for years. The Big Ten's got potential 65 million viewers, while the SEC's got Florida and Texas now, but really the other Alabama, Mississippi, you're not talking about very large urban areas. So it's really, again, there's a lot of chest thumping and drum beating. And I'm a Southeastern Conference school, but it just, I don't know. Sometimes they just seem like they just are in a world of their own.
Well, they are. What about, suddenly having Texas A&M, and Texas is very important to the SEC. Suddenly, just think about it, Bo and Kevin. If they had not got Texas and Texas A&M to join, they might really be in trouble now. Let's revisit the Cody Campbell Friday Night Lights comment. Upon further review, Cody Campbell is the chairman of the Board of Regents at Texas Tech, and he played football at Texas Tech. And upon further review, he made a comment saying that he was unhappy that the Big 12 has scheduled the University of Houston and Texas Tech on a Friday night. I certainly understand the underlying, reason that, Texas high schools are so strong, and the Coaches Association really objects to competition from, the colleges. But then again, the Big 12 has been playing a Friday night game for some time now.
Check
it's
1, 2,
only the
3.
first time that Tech has been selected.
Well, let's face it, culture in Texas, little different than other places.
Right.
Friday nights are sacrosanct in Texas. And, I don't care if where you are in West Texas, be it your Odessa Permian, Lubbock Coronado, the Tulia Hornets, whatever. You go to your game on Friday night because it's sacrilegious not to go. Well, those are a ton of people who'd be going to the Tech game on Saturday who won't be
Right.
going. So I think Cody has at least that much of a point.
I think Cody has a point to some degree too. I mean, I've never really understood why big conferences, when we're talking about the Big Ten, the Big 12, the SEC, why they want to play midweek games. I've not understood it at all because the MAC and the conferences like that, they do it to get some eyeballs on their games because
Right.
they're not reaching anybody on Saturday. But I don't understand why big conferences choose to do that. I don't understand why they don't just stay on Saturdays. That's just my take.
It's going to come back to money. I think, it's another night advertising bucks, whether they get a draw or not, it's going to be money into the coffer.
Well,
And
that's true. I mean, we've talked about that with the bowl games
money's
before.
driving everything right now, which is kind of sad. I mean,
Yeah,
the
you'll see
fact
these bowl games and they'll have nobody at them, but they don't care because ESPN owns it and they're making millions of dollars selling all the advertising rights.
Well, the history of this was the first conference that got into the Friday night was the Pacific, the Pac-12 or whatever. And when they blew up, they offered that Friday night window to Brett Yomark, the commissioner, and he jumped at it. And I think that they've been successful. It doesn't bother me when the Big 12 is on, except the Texas schools. And, I don't know why they just can't schedule the Houston game with Tech some other time, maybe on a Thursday night if Friday night is so objectionable. But there's high
This thing
school
keeps
games
blacking
now
out
on
on me,
Thursday
Julian.
night. Kevin, you're a sports anchor. You know how important it is to that the northern part of the state. I can say in some of the metro areas, it's not that like that. But after being out in West Texas and broadcasting games, you're right. I know that there are towns that just basically close up and go to the football game on Friday night.
The concept you're talking about, guys, was really, really underscored in a book about, of all people, Rick Pitino. It was called The Final Redemption of Rick Pitino. And basically what it was about the Louisville Athletic Department. I mean, he mentions Pitino, but it was about the Louisville Athletic Department. And that athletic director there was one sharp cookie because he realized early on, listen, we're not going to get any eyeballs on Saturday anyway. So why don't we just go ahead and play our games on Wednesday and Thursday? ESPN will cover it, and we'll get all kinds of national attention we weren't getting before. And so they literally lived for years doing that. Every Thursday night, every Wednesday night that they could get a game on ESPN, they did for the eyeball factor that we're talking about there. So, that's been existent for a while, but of course, I don't think Texas Tech particularly needs that anymore. So
Now, I tell you what, I really, Bo, I remember the days on Thursday Night Football, and you got the coverage of the Big West, the Mountain West, but the WAC. It was so fun to watch. That was back in the Marshall Faulk days, and BYU winning the national championship. Those were some incredible games on Thursday night. I think that it just depends on the product. You're going to draw an audience no matter what night you're on. I remember when Northern Illinois under Jerry Kill went to the Orange Bowl that year, and they made the name on Wednesday Night Football.
You're right. And John, one of the great story, and Kevin probably has heard this before, New Mexico had a home game with Texas Tech. This was when the Southwest Conference was still going on in the middle 1990s. And Eddie Joseph, who's head of the Texas High School Coaches Association, called the Southwest Conference and said, this can't happen. We can't have a game on first Southwest Conference game ever on Friday night on the road. And Eddie couldn't figure out what to do. So he gave my email out to every coach in the state and said, write a complaint note to Bo Carter. So
oh, you got all the complaints.
Like 4 days, right? Yeah. Oh my! I said, Eddie, if you ever do this again, I'm going to kill you. I had nothing to do with New Mexico. It was New Mexico's home game, and they ESPN decided they want to have him on. So what do? You know how that goes.
Well, I know that as always, you got to go, even though you've had some technical difficulties. Let's cover college baseball with you before you go. Talk about the new top 25 and who has really surprised you this week.
Hey, break up UCLA, John. The women's basketball team won 31. The baseball teams won 23 in a row, including sweeping USC over the weekend, which is USC was ranked number 9 in the country.
Big time,
so,
yes.
They're looking like they're pre-Omaha favorite to win it all. Sort of great story. I think I might have mentioned this. Jacksonville State out of Conference USA is 15-0 in Conference USA, and they're really playing some great baseball. Steve Beazer, the former coach at Missouri, took over that program, and they've really they've turned everything around. So
now, if this was 15 or 20 years ago, everybody would just scoff at UCLA beating up, the Big Ten opponents. But the Big Ten opponents have gotten a lot stronger over the last couple of decades.
Yeah, especially with Oregon, USC, and UCLA all being in the Big Ten now. It's,
right, but Michigan's looked good, and so has Ohio State and Penn State.
Nebraska moved up to number 14.
Nebraska's playing better, too.
Yep. They really are. They're playing some great baseball, I'll tell you what. So it's it's a good poll. And the SEC just keeps killing. Georgia swept Mississippi State in Starkville to move up to number 2 in the Baseball America poll. So it's really been a it's Coach probably about to say too. It's been dog eat dog out there.
What's going on with the Vandy boys?
I don't know. They can't. They're great at home and terrible on the road. The Aggies whipped up on them a run rule game last weekend. I think this is their worst start since. Good start since 2005.
OU's coming this weekend, so that should be a good series.
That'll be a good series. Skip Johnson will have them ready to go or whatever too. I'll tell you what.
And we're talking off camera. There's a huge series in the College Station this weekend with Schlossnagel and his Horns coming back to town. So
UT coming into Aggie land.
That's right. They didn't play.
First time Schloss has been back since he left.
And the funny thing, baseball and all the other Olympic sports between Texas and Texas A&M played. The only thing that canceled during the Big 12 and Texas split was the football series, which is kind of weird. But I mean, all the other sports, remember basketball, baseball, volleyball, everything, nobody else played.
They played the
battle of the egos, as you guys know.
Yeah,
it's going to be an interesting weekend in College Station for sure.
Yeah, a couple other teams look. Coastal Carolina seems to be getting pretty hot right now. I mean, they've won 10 of their last 11 games.
Yes.
And you got Central Florida. They've won 16 of 20. That's a pretty good string to put together. So you got some teams there that you don't really think of. Coastal Carolina, Central Florida. I wouldn't put them when I start thinking of college baseball. I always think of Texas and people like that are going to be there.
Coastal Carolina has been building their program for many years, and I've witnessed the whole thing. When I was at New Mexico Highlands in the NAIA, the NAIA College World Series was at Lubbock Christian. Larry Hayes was the coach down there, and Coastal Carolina was in that. Now, that's an amazing jump coming from the NAIA to Division I now over the last 20 or 30 years. And so I sort of have a soft spot for them. They had a good football program too, didn't they, Bo?
They really have. Of course, they played the Myrtle Beach Bowl there at Coastal Carolina Stadium, and they've had some they've had some tremendous football. They're right in the midst of all the Sun Belt and Conference USA title race every year. So they're a great recruiting area. I'd like to be on the beach all the time.
No kidding.
It's pretty nice.
One more thing before you go. Let's talk about what John Kearns brought up with the Sports Commission. John, we were talking off air about the possible playoffs, and we know that it's coming, and we don't think it's going to be 32 teams. And, 64 teams have been mentioned too, but Bo, I think 8 would be about right. I think that if you go 64, there's going to be some good teams left out.
I totally agree, and I think one of the other problems is and this is sort of a related problem that you've got you're going to have a lot of 7 and 5 and 6 and 6 teams in the
Yeah, in the leagues.
They're going to be calling for the coach's head. So
That's
I
right.
don't know.
Nobody thinks about that. It's just like when Texas and Texas A&M went into the SEC. Well, I know that they've got, a bunch of hubris and they're just thinking that they're going to be on top, but somebody's got to be on the bottom. Look at Arkansas and look at A&M even. They all thought that they were going to go over and win it, but in those super conferences and even super leagues, somebody's got to be on top, somebody's got to be on the bottom, and somebody's going to be in the middle. And there's going to be a lot of teams, like you say, 5-7, 6-6, 7-5 in the middle.
It'll never happen, but man, I still think that the concept of relegation and promotion makes sense.
Like the soccer leagues.
Like the soccer leagues. I think
Right.
that makes a lot of sense when you talk about teams like that. And you go 3 and 8, you're going to get relegated down to Division 2 or whatever they want to call it, right?
Right.
And then if you win at that, the top 10 or something, get promoted up, and the bottom 10 gets shifted down. I think it would make it more interesting across the board and make some late season games more meaningful, even for teams that are at the bottom, because they're trying to scrap to keep where they're at.
Well, it's an interesting you always got to have some bottom. I agree with John, the fact that there's always going to be somebody down at the bottom. And if you put together an 80-team super conference, you're going to have some teams, and I don't want to start naming names, but then there are those that are going to be always at the top, the elite. I mean, they're there. They're there. They're going to be they're the ones that are going to be spending the bucks. They're the ones that are going to be, doing what they have to, facilities, everything. And they're going to stay there. I mean, you got some outliers like Indiana this year, a surprise. And nobody, 3 years ago, laughing stock. 2 years later, they're the national champions. It can be done, but how long can they sustain? And I think, you have the elites that are going to be there. Texas, I'm going to put Oklahoma in, you got USC, even though I'm not a fan right now. Well, I still think, it's going to, you get the 80 teams, you're going to have the ability to schedule people that you can win. And the coaches, and I agree with Bo, if you go to some schools, if you go 8-3, 8-5, they're going to be after you. They're going to, looking for your scalp. But those are the teams that have always been there as the elites, to the cream, as we would like to think, rising to the top. And
the only point that I would make there, John, is what we were talking about. If you're a forward thinker, and there's probably not any of those in the TV offices, you've got to say, look, this is wide open now. We can't just go with the teams that have been on top, over the past 5 decades. We've got to look forward a little bit and give newbies, like in Indiana, like Texas Tech, or, some teams that haven't been there before, we've got to give them an opportunity to move up. And that's, that's Tom's idea.
What about the teams like North Dakota State, who have been a powerhouse at the second tier and now are moving up to the first tier? Are they going to get an opportunity to be in this super conference too?
Probably not. But
no,
they've got state money, that they can spend, which maybe somebody like, I don't know. I mean, there are teams that are good that aren't the university, of their state. So I think you have to give them an opening. All right, let's move on to a little bit more of the College Sports Commission. John, I know that you're waiting with bated breath to see what comes out of the Sports Commission headed by President Trump.
Well, I mean, just this week, April 5th, April 3rd, he issued his executive order a month after the meeting when he said he was going to do it with 1 week.
Right.
But we all knew that couldn't happen because Rome wasn't built in a day. And he came up with, the urgent national action to save college sports. That's the executive order. And it has, several key bullets. I mean, again, going back to eligibility, which is a sore spot for a lot of folks right now. There are several lawsuits, quite a few lawsuits right now, pending on athletes challenging the NCAA's rulings on eligibility. He wants to set it at just a definite 5 years. You got 5 years when you enroll in school. You got 5 years to complete your
I
eligibility.
think I'd be for that.
And that was the old. That's what it was when I went through school.
5
When
years.
I enrolled,
5
I
years to
had
play
5
for.
years.
Right.
And okay, you get
And
one
if you go to
transfer.
junior college, that's 2.
Yeah, that still counted.
Well,
to be as
but
long.
no, Diego Pavia sued, and that ended. That they're not going to hold those JUCO years against you. Yeah, the thing that scuttles everything are the lawsuits. I swear it's like these lawyers that you see on TV, that call if you're in a wreck, don't settle. They're getting a lot of money through these ball players because the NCAA, as soon as they get notified that there's a lawsuit, they back off.
And there's no real teeth in this. I mean, he says it's going to, it's sound, it's solid, but he also acknowledged it's going to be settled in court. There's no way to get around it anymore unless Congress acts. But this,
No.
and Congress has been dawdling over this for 10 years now. And, they've got the SAVE Act, which is not real popular across the board.
My favorite part of Trump's proposal, he said that we'll just push this through and I'll get a judge that's a favorable judge. We'll push that through in court.
He'll get Eileen Cannon down in
There
Florida.
you go. There you go.
Rule on it, since she's ruled everything, that
Judge Judy, I think, is available,
So, sets, wants to have a set limit on scholarships, have a cap, 105 like for football, registering agents. He wants to have a certified list of agents that can represent the athletes, both high school and college.
Right.
And so, but he also wants to guarantee that there will be no limitations or restrictions on Olympic sports. So some of it's good. I can agree with some of it. I don't know exactly how it's going to be enforced. Who's going to do it? The NCAA doesn't seem to have the wherewithal to do anything right now.
They don't have
they've been around 120 years, and if you want to talk about something on their deathbed, I think you're looking at a year, 2 years max before it's gone.
Right.
So the fact.
We talked last week about the SEC breaking off and forming their own thing. Is that still a thing now? Is that still a viable option for them to go and not be affiliated with the NCAA or any of the
I think right now, Tom, that you're really looking at the SEC and the Big Ten. They've been in communication, both public and private, now for about the last year.
Yeah, but they're not getting along now. I mean,
yes and no, because when it comes to money, John, that's going to buy some silence from both of them.
Right. They were
if they can negotiate.
They were supposed to come to some sort of agreement last Christmas, and they didn't.
Well, arguments among family members.
Right.
But I can see that, that happening. I mean, an oddity that I found when I was doing some research this week, the establishment of the NCAA, which started in 1906,
Kansas City,
was headed up by Teddy Roosevelt. They had several conferences at the White House, which he headed up. I know where this idea came from now.
Right.
Because that's one of his idols, is Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt is the driving force behind the establishment of the NCAA back in 1906.
Kevin, do you remember the name of the guy that was the head of the NCAA for generations?
Walter Byers.
Walter Byers. Yeah, I mean, I guess what has happened is just like the FBI going to pot after J. Edgar Hoover, after Walter Byers with that iron grip that he had over the membership went away. It's just the inmates have, taken over the asylum.
Well, it all started when Georgia and Oklahoma sued to get their games on TV, where they didn't want to have the NCAA negotiate for them.
Right.
They wanted to sell their product as is. And, that leads to where we are today, where, let's face it, a Saturday morning, you start at 11 and you go to well after midnight just watching one football game after another.
I just think that nothing's going to happen, Coach.
Well, From that, I think, it's much to do about nothing. And until Congress acts, again, everything is going to be subject to a court interpretation. I mean, you go back and look, NCAA versus Alston, House versus NCAA. Everything has come about as a result of a court decision. And it's chipped away, just chip uh, at different fundamentals. And, it's kind of taken us to where we're at right now. And
And
until
when you boil
Congress
it down,
acts,
you're talking about politicians running the sports world now. And I don't know, it just doesn't
well,
seem like it's going to end well to
Well,
me.
that's
well,
why I don't think anything's going to happen because
they don't do anything
they
very
don't do
well.
anything very well. And you're right, Coach. Lawsuits are usually the ones that point the way. But now there's such a flurry of so many lawsuits. I just don't know which one will be the one that sticks.
There's some some athletes are going back and suing that they didn't get paid 20 years ago.
That's right.
I mean,
Diego
there's
Pavia again.
yeah, I mean, there's a whole slew of issues right now that are before the courts.
And if that
And
happens, think about there's no end to it. I mean, you could go
no, there
back to
isn't.
the families of people that played in the early 1900s.
Hey,
They should get
I could
paid.
get some money,
Yeah, everybody wants to get a piece of pie. I don't know where it ends.
The only
It
thing
it
I think that will save college athletics is that there is one thing that cuts through on every generation and everybody that's a fan. It's that they like the games. They like to go to the football games. They like to watch them on TV. And so that if you've got a united nation, which I think you do, that loves college sports, college football in particular, I think something is going to happen because it cannot go on the way it is.
no, it's headed for failure. There's no doubt about it. And I don't know. It's
Right now, it's too big to fail.
Can we get oversaturated? I mean, can we get too much of a
I
good
think
thing?
we already are, but
I
sure
mean,
you can.
I-
Something's going to happen. It's not going to happen through Congress or through the presidency. I can tell you that.
college football, I mean, that's the big thing right now. It's the driving factor. It's the one that seems to it. It's the moneymaker. And I think, we talk about Monday nights, Tuesday night. You look at the NFL. Whoever thought we'd be seeing Monday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Friday, Sunday. Used to be Sunday was NFL football. Now, by popular demand, I guess they must be selling something.
I was too young to remember when Monday Night Football first started. I remember watching it, but I was
It
very,
was a
very young.
thing. It was
Was
a
it
thing.
was it a big deal?
Oh yeah, it was a big deal. And back to what your comment was, Coach. I think even the NFL now has discovered that they can oversaturate their product. I don't know if you saw this, but they came out a couple weeks ago and said that there was no longer going to be 2 Monday night ball games.
Well, they've tried everything. They just,
right.
they double down on everything,
And I
and
think
now,
they've just watered down that product.
the one thing that they say that, but then on the other hand, they're talking about expanding to 18 game seasons to get one more paycheck.
Well, that's one more paycheck for the owners. And I think the owners have figured out that they can't fool the fans any longer. There's just fewer and fewer fans that will go out to these, quote, exhibition games.
Oh, they don't, that's a joke. That is the biggest ripoff.
Well, that's why they're talking 18 games. I guess they'll play one exhibition game just to tune up, and then they'll just start.
Well, since they started doing all these inter squad scrimmages, you
Yes.
go to my training camp and I'll go to
Yes.
your training camp and we'll scrimmage each other, which is basically what the exhibition games are. They're just controlled scrimmages.
Mm-hmm.
And so I agree. I think they're getting to a point where they realize, we pulled the wool over their eyes for 15
Right.
years and they finally caught on, and now they're not even. But if you want to buy a season ticket,
They're
you
in
got to
there.
buy the
All
you
those
got to
are
buy
in
the
there.
exhibition.
Right.
So
Right.
they got you coming and going, but fans are beginning to rebel, and I think that's a good thing. And I think you'll see that happening with college athletics as well.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit of golf, Coach. Let's talk about the Masters. It's Masters week, and who are some of the players that you think are going to? I wish we had Mark Johnson today. He couldn't be with
Yeah,
us,
I was
but
going to say we're missing Mark today because he's
yeah,
the guy. Scotty Scheffler, I guess he's one of the favorites right now. Rory McIlroy, I
yeah.
mean, he could pull off something that only three other guys have done, and that's winning back to back. I mean, Tiger did it, Nicholas did it, Faldo did it, but those are the only three that have ever had a back to back Masters championship.
It's been very interesting. The last two tournaments have been in Texas, and the last two tournament winners in Texas are previous U.S. Open winners. And so, Woodland, and I can't remember who won the name of the guy that won the San Antonio Valero, but they had previously won the U.S. Open. So is there anybody else out there that's won a U.S. Open that hadn't won the Masters? He might be a favorite.
And you always look for that one dark horse Cinderella, and they're the ones that everybody kind of roots for. Who's first they got to make the cut, and then then you do all that stuff. The Masters is unique. I mean, I was stationed at Fort Gordon, Georgia, in Augusta. Drove out by there. You can't get in. It's a very exclusive, limited, restricted area. Almost
Very
like
exclusive, right?
Yeah, almost like Zone 51. uh, and but it's a beautiful area. The golf course is unbelievable. It's almost like it's indoors because of the fact everything is controlled. If it's too hot, I mean, if it's dry, they have ways of injecting water under the greens. I mean, they have developed a system there. I mean, it's you don't get to play that one during the week. I mean, it's just a very exclusive, well manicured golf course, and it's unique. I mean, it's there every year. It doesn't move around like the Open, and so it's got a real uniqueness about it. The magnolias,
Right.
know,
Oh, the
there is,
azaleas. Yeah.
I mean, just everything going there. Had several friends who have gone to it, and they just rave about how it is so beautiful and how so well controlled. They run that tournament like a fine machine, and that I think it is unique among unique when it comes to golf tournaments.
Tom, who's your pick this week?
I'm hoping that Scotty Scheffler comes out and makes a good showing. I know he's been out for the last couple of tournaments. I don't know, did he have a child or there was?
Yes, I was just going to say, just like you, having a grandbaby this week, Scheffler,
Yes.
I think they had a baby boy. And so this last couple of days, so that's my pick because, Coach, and Tom, sort of gets you focused on bringing home the bacon after you have a kid.
And getting you
Or
excited.
we need focus on, you got to do something.
Right.
Yeah. Scheffler's my pick just because he's been kind of laying low, hasn't been in the last couple of tournaments, and I think it's just good to refresh a little bit and get out there. I think he's going to make a good showing.
I'm not going to discount Rory McIlroy. This is his 26 Masters, so he's got the experience. The crowd's not going to bother him. I mean, so he won it last year, so that big burden's off his shoulders, so he can relax and play a little looser.
All right.
So I wouldn't bet against him. I mean,
Kevin,
even though
who's going to win the Masters?
Now, if I knew, I'd take all my money and go to Vegas. Hey, I'll tell you what, I apologize for the dropout. I don't know what's going on here, but here's the point I was trying to make before I left. We were talking about, football games being played, from 11 in the morning till midnight.
Yes.
And here is what I remember. It was my senior year. Texas Tech was playing Houston for the conference championship. They were playing conference championship.
I was there. I was in the end zone.
And anyhow, ABC was there to do the play-by-play of the game. And I remember it was a happening in Lubbock like you wouldn't believe.
You bet.
I mean, you just wouldn't believe all the fanfare of ABC being there. Well, now every game Texas Tech plays is on TV somewhere.
Just about.
And so, things have just changed drastically. And it all did come about, once Georgia and Oklahoma sued, and now everybody's got their games on somewhere.
All right, I'll go from his story to a long story, okay? The way I got into this business is exactly what Kevin was talking about. Here I was, a sports person at the local college radio station. But the way I got involved with television is when ABC came to broadcast a football game, me and my roommate went out and just said, "Hey, is there anything that we can help doing?" And so we got to pull cable for the cameras. Back then, all the cameras, I guess they still are, maybe, are connected via cables. And so, working from the TV truck all underneath the stands and pulling the cable so they can, hook their cameras up. Well, that's the way we started. And I guess we did a pretty good job because I believe, Kevin, ABC came back that year for another game. Oh, no, the first game that ABC came to that year was the Texas game at Lubbock. And so the Houston game was the second game that ABC came in for because it was basically for the conference championship. And so I guess the guy that we, were sort of volunteer working for liked us. And we worked our way up to where anytime ABC TV had an event in a 5-state area, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Colorado, they would fly us to the games to work. And my roommate eventually worked his way up to the director in the booth. And I worked the graphics trailer. And that's a completely different story that one day I'll tell you guys about because I've got some great pictures. But for the young people out there wanting to know how to get into this business, Kevin, you could tell your story, how you got into it. And Tom and John, you can, in your careers, you can explain, but you can't sit on your butt. You got to take action and you got to go out there and be seen. And it's internships are great. You can get your foot in any industry, in with an internship. Kevin, how did you get into business?
I really don't have anything that poignant. Just I was at West Texas State, played basketball my first year. I'm not going to say I didn't do real well, but let's just say the coach wasn't exactly high on me. And I was about to transfer when what happened was I got the opportunity to be the sports editor of the school paper and the sports director of the campus radio station all at once. And so my plan was to do that for a year, and then I was hoping the coach got fired and I could go out for the team again the next year. Well, what happened? He goes 19-7, beats Louisville at Freedom Hall. So he gets a 3-year contract, and I had been out of basketball long enough now where the only schools I could even get any attention to from were Division III non-scholarship schools. And I didn't think it was worth it to leave for that because I really had a deal going at West Texas where I was getting all kinds of experience, both in the print and in the broadcasting. And that pretty much is how I ended up getting in it and staying in it.
Absolutely. Coach, how'd you get into coaching?
How'd I get into coaching? I being an athlete all my life, and I enjoyed that. And when I got into college, and I was playing, and then I decided, okay, I enjoy this, and I kept thinking I can do this, and I can, being around some good coaches and bad coaches, we all have had them, the good, the bad, the ugly. I made a decision, I guess, like my sophomore year, I wanted to get into education, and I wanted to coach. And I was fortunate enough to get hired on right out of college. Matter of fact, I was doing you talk about internship, I was coaching the sophomore high school basketball team from 6 o'clock till 9 o'clock at night for minimum wage before I graduated. So I kind of just eased into it. And
But
I mean,
you had to do
I fell
something
in
that
love
you
with it.
didn't like. I mean, but you had
Well,
to.
you had to
Yeah.
make some sacrifices. I mean,
Right.
the fact
Right.
is, I was married and had a kid, and being away from 6 to 9 at night didn't exactly sit great with my wife. I mean, she had to take care of everything, and I mean, the pay was basic, minimal. It wasn't for that, but I enjoyed it. I really fell in love with it, and I had success, and I could relate to kids, and I stayed with it for 42, 40 plus
Wow.
years.
Yeah, like they say, you do something you love to do. It's
Well,
like
you don't walk away
stealing
from
money.
it.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, until it gets to be a job.
That's
When it
right.
starts to be a job, that's when you look for something else.
Absolutely.
And that was kind of the credo I had. When this gets to be work and I'm not enjoying it, then it's time to walk away.
Though, John, every time I hear somebody say, "How did you get in it?" I can't help but relay this story, because the all-time best one I ever heard was a guy named George Usher, who was a renowned sportscaster for many years for Newsday in the New York area. In fact, he was the only one who predicted the Jets would beat the Colts in Super Bowl III. That was his prediction. Well, he was at Newsday for like 40 years. I mean, and he just became an icon in the community. Was there that long. But the way he got his start, he was a student at Hofstra University, which is not that far from where Newsday's plant is.
Right.
And he went over there. He saw that they were looking for a part-time janitor. And he went over there to apply for the job as the part-time janitor. Well, what happened? The receptionist, I guess, they had a part-time janitor and they had a part-time doing high school sports too. They sent them to the wrong room. They sent them to the room where they were interviewing people for the part-time sports job. And he walks in there thinking he's applying for a janitor's job. And he couldn't for the life of him understand why they're asking questions about English grammar and stuff like that. And, at the end, they said, okay, you got the job, report to such and such at such and such time, 2 days from now. And he went in there and he realized he applied for a sports writing job. He thought he was going to apply for a janitor job.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
Wow. Tom?
Well, I have kind of a unique, interesting story as well. Just from the sports media standpoint, I would have to say that I owe what I've accomplished in my career to John Askins. I was sitting at a Texas Tech football game many, many years ago, and John happened to be sitting in front of my wife and I, and my wife and I were talking, and he turned around and he was like, "Hey, you guys know a lot about football." But before I knew it, we went to dinner that night, and within a week, I was on a radio show with him.
And
So,
I have apologized for that.
but that was a really interesting, be at the right place, be at the right time type of situation for me, and we've been friends since, and that was a wonderful thing. But one of the things that I do think that's unique for all of us, but I've had a different vantage point than a lot of people. I have played, I have coached, I have refereed, I have written, I have done TV a little bit and done radio and play-by-play and call. I've actually owned a sports memorabilia store. I wrote a book about baseball. So I've had all of these different aspects that kind of come full circle for me. So it's been a unique blend of drawing on all of that experience to bring to the table. But I owe it all to that man right there, John Askins.
I'm so sorry. But then again, just like
That sounds familiar.
all of us have said, you just got to follow what you love doing. And yeah, John, Coach K and I have the same almost circumstances. I can still remember going into that
Vividly.
restaurant, yeah, and saying, "Hey, how would you like to do a sports talk show?"
I thought I was being followed to be mugged. I mean, when you came out after me, I mean, I was there doing an interview after we won the state championship on the local radio station, and you were there eating dinner, and you listened. And when my wife and I got up to leave. You followed us out. You said, how would you like to? And I thought you were kidding me.
I
I
didn't
thought it
say,
was a
give me your
joke.
wallet, did I?
No, but it was like, I don't know this guy. I mean, but it was a beginning, just like you're saying, Tom, of a very fantastic relationship.
Absolutely. Gift of gab for me. I was on a debate scholarship at Texas Tech, so I learned how to talk a long time ago, I guess, in front of a crowd, so
There
to
you
speak.
go.
So this helped.
Well, this is interesting because in 2 weeks, we're going to have on a young kid that is probably one of the fastest rising sports announcing personalities, I know, in the state of Texas and in the Southwest. And I'll keep that as a secret. But next week, we're going to have his dad on, Jorge Perez Navarro, who is like one of the top 3 soccer announcers. And we're going to be talking about the World Cup. So everybody brush up on your World Cup knowledge. And let's,
You're bringing back memory to me, John, because I actually did the play-by-play of the Plano West South Lake Carroll state championship game, and I had never even seen a soccer game before. And, I was walking around with a book. In fact, I've got it on that shelf there. I ought to get it off and show you. It says Soccer for Dummies.
there you go. Send me a copy.
I was trying to get the fundamentals for soccer down, and I didn't know anything about soccer. So what I did, I was matched up with a European guy who knew all about that stuff. And so I just saying, Judy Jones dribbles down the far sideline and was chased out of bounds. Jorge, what happened there? And let him, just go with it. But
Well, we're going to learn all about soccer next week. Let's go to scattershooting, guys. Kevin, what have you been thinking about this week?
I'll tell you what, I can't believe we didn't talk more about this on the show, but Gino going ballistic at the girls' tournament. And here's the deal, regardless of whether, a lot of people thought it was classless and that kind of stuff, I thought it was the best thing that could have happened to the girls' tournament because it drew all kinds of attention.
Right.
They were talking about that from CBS Evening News on down, and it brought a lot of attention to the girls' tournament and whatnot. But to me, it was a little bit amusing. I mean, Gino, you got 12 banners up in your gym.
Yeah. I saw Jay Johnson at LSU, the coach down there, go off like, he was beating Kent State by 3 runs. I guess that wasn't enough because he went off on a call strike like it was the most important thing in the universe. That's one thing that I was going to talk about, Kevin. I am so sick. I've reached my level of coaches from Little League to the top pro leagues going absolutely ballistic over any kind of call. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I guess that's just the state of the nation because we are now become so uncivil with each other. These coaches are just being unleashed. Look at the women's coach, Kim Mulkey, down at LSU. Look at the coach at Texas, what they do on a regular basis. It's just embarrassing, but it's not to them anymore. It's like, I guess maybe the money is playing into this. They feel like they've got to get every ball and every strike and every foul called correctly or they go ballistic.
I am a firm believer that everybody who coaches, plays, or anything should have a turn at being an official.
Well, yeah.
Because
I
will
agree
tell
with
you,
that 100%.
It changes your attitude towards it.
Well, you got that right, because I had a friend of mine who I guess you would know, John, Paul Matney, who was the weekend weather guy at Channel 4 when we were there. He was a big into umpiring. And he was trying to recruit some people to umpire Little League games with him one summer. And I thought that'd be kind of fun and did it. Well, what I didn't realize, I about got in a fight every game at the end of the night. I had a parent confronting me and, about just totally ridiculous stuff. And I'm like, guys, it's Little League baseball. Let's not treat it like it's the World Series here. But to those people was, well, no, needless to say, I never umpired or refereed anything after that because I didn't need to be getting in any fights.
I understand. The worst I ever got cussed out on any athletic field, and I refereed football, like I said, for a long, long time. I've refereed softball or umpired softball, done baseball. I've done a lot of different sports, basketball, volleyball. The worst I ever got cussed out was at a third grade youth football game by a little old lady, her grandson. I called a holding call on her grandson, and I heard words I'd never heard before.
I've got a friend of mine, his wife is renowned through the Texas high school area here, being at their kids' baseball and games, that she's just like that. Don't poke the bear is what they say. John?
It does change it completely. I officiated basketball for 9 years, and, very fast-paced, and every call you make is wrong. I mean,
Right.
you're going to make somebody mad, you're going to make somebody happy.
Make half of them happy and half of them mad.
And I'd kind of got ingrained in that because as a kid growing up, I mean, when I first got married, scrounging around trying to make an extra buck, I called Little League Baseball, and just like Kevin's saying, man, after every game, there's going to be a grandparent, a parent, an aunt, an uncle, somebody who's got a bone to pick with you. How could you make that call in the third inning? It was so far outside that,
It's
okay,
crazy.
you miss them every once in a while. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm looking at the big boys right now.
Yeah.
They're getting,
They're getting lambasted with this ABS system.
this ABS has really changed a lot of things in Major League Baseball. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
almost as fun to watch that part of the game as it is to watch the game, which
Yeah.
reminds me, I have a question for everybody.
What's that?
Any surprises in Major League Baseball right now? We knew the big two were going to be there. We knew the Yankees were going to be there. We knew that Los Angeles was going to be there, and they're both doing exactly what we said they would.
Well,
I've actually been pretty impressed with the Astros thus far because
Astros have been a surprise.
Nah,
I'm very surprised with them because I
thought I'd
didn't
get a
think they
surprise.
had any horses. Of course, it's real early in the season, but
I think the Cincinnati Reds with Terry Francona are going to be better than they have been.
I think you might be
they're
right
2-8
there.
right now. The only way to go is up.
Well, I just
So-
think they're going to be better. Astros have had a disaster happen this week. They've lost their top starter. Their third starter is not fully back from Tommy John. And, we had a conversation about Lance McCullers last week. Well, this week he didn't look so good. Their starting pitching is in complete disarray.
It is.
Their ERA is almost 6 right now.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
But
so,
somehow they're
but the good
putting
thing,
W's up.
If
they're batting
if-
288
yeah.
as a
Now,
team.
I will say that the offense has been a very pleasant surprise. And you know what? They changed hitting coaches from the last several years.
It's paying off for them because right now, if you look at it, they're second in the major leagues right now in hitting. Only Los Angeles at 299 is ahead of them in hitting.
Jordan was
But
the player of the week, and he's back. If he's back,
He's looking like the hitter he
looking
was.
really good. Tom, what's your
So-
scatter shooting moment?
I'm gonna stick with Major League Baseball, but I'm gonna go back in the past to Nolan Ryan. Most people think Nolan Ryan is a true Hall of Famer. He's a wonderful Texan. He's done all kinds of great things. But there's a segment of the baseball official type people that don't like that he's in the Hall of Fame. They think he doesn't deserve it. And I've just got to throw some stats out there that to me are amazing. You get beyond the 7 no-hits. You get beyond that he has the most strikeouts of anybody. Then you look at he had 12 one-hit games. That means he was one batter away from having another 12 no-hitters.
Yeah, I know where
You
you're
gotta
going with this,
understand-
too. How about 2 hitters?
2 hitters, he's the most 2 hitters, 18 of them.
And he
And
has what
3
he had,
hitters, 31 of them.
31. Yep.
So you're talking 50 plus games that he was this close to having more no-hitters. And there's nobody anywhere close.
And he played on some bad teams. Those
He
Angels
played on
teams,
horrible teams. Most of them talk about he never won a Cy Young. He
Right.
never won a Cy Young because he played on some nasty, rotten teams most of his career.
Best team that he ever played on is like in the 80s with the Astros when he was paired up with J.R. Richard and that group.
Well, the Amazing Mets are probably the best team he played on.
Well,
but
yeah,
he wasn't. He
wasn't a
wasn't.
starter yet. He was
He
just
wasn't a
coming up.
starter there. But that was probably the best team he played on. 'cause
I
that's
saw
the
him
only time
pitch
he got-
at the Big A in Anaheim on my birthday in 1976.
Wow.
Played the
I saw him
Kansas City
pitch
Royals.
in the early 80s with the Astros and saw him pitch. I saw him pitch a couple of those one-hitters, actually. I always wanted to see a no-hitter, but I saw him pitch one with the Astros, and I saw him pitch one with the Rangers.
Can
Coach
anybody
Gay-
attacked on the mound?
Oh,
Yeah, Robin
Yeah.
Ventura, and he took him down.
quite
Well,
a bit
I got to
on that
tell
one.
this story because Bo Jackson was on TV the other night talking about this, and I don't know exactly. It was one of those ESPN 30 for 30s on something, but Bo Jackson was on the same team as Robin Ventura, and Bo Jackson was one of the first guys to get there to, so to speak,
I saw that. Yes.
break it up. Well, somehow or another, Ventura, for whatever reason, thought that Nolan was going to throw at him. And I don't know why he thought that, if they had had words before or something like that. And Bo Jackson said he told Ventura, he said, listen, if he hits you and you attack the mound, do not take your helmet off and
Right. As a
use it as a battering ram to take him down. Use
Right.
the helmet. Well, the first thing Robin does is tosses his helmet off. And I guess, Bo said, don't waste any time. Don't look around. Just immediately run out there. And one, he had his helmet off. And two, he gave his opponent plenty of time to get
Right.
a defense up. But Bo was laughing about it because Bo said, yeah, I told him how you go about taking out the picture, and he did exactly opposite of what I told him to do.
Exactly. I've spent a lot of time with Robin, and we've had a lot of time to talk about that. And I will tell those stories on another episode. But I can tell you that when he threw his helmet and about halfway out there, he was going, "Shit, what am I doing?"
Yeah, do I really want to follow through?
Yeah, no,
But you can't back down now.
no, you can't back down then.
Did they ever make amends? I was just curious.
I don't know, but Robin Ventura is one of the nicest guys. He is not at all what that episode portrays him to be. Anyway, so I guess I'll end this. I've got a scatter shooting moment watching Illinois play in the Final Four, and their coach, he's been there 9 years now. He's fourth on the list of winningest basketball coaches at Illinois. That's Brad Underwood. But I want to talk about the winningest coach, Lou Henson, who I had an amazing pleasure to be able to get to know him and his wife, Mary, when he was out at New Mexico State. Now, this was at the second time. This is when he came home after he retired from Illinois. New Mexico State had gotten, banned on probation or whatever. And Coach Henson came back and for $1 decided he would, try and help New Mexico State out. And he took over. And I was looking at some of his stats. He is 18th all time in wins in NCAA history. He's 11th in game coaches. He has 775 total wins. So, but he is number one in Illinois for the most wins at the Illini. He took him to a Final Four. He coached 21 years at Illinois. He went to the NCAA tournament 9 times. He went to the Final Four. He was Big Ten Coach of the Year. And also in the Missouri Valley Conference, he was Coach of the Year. One of the nicest gentlemen that I've ever met, and was very, very pleasant, was not the typical type of celebrity that you would normally see. And I'm going to end the show tonight. Everybody say goodbye. I'm going to end the show tonight when Coach Henson explains how he got the reputation for having the Lou-do. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yeah, folks.
No,
Enthusiastic crowd.
My name is Blake. I'm a business major from Dallas. Hey, Coach Henson, how glad are you that Eric Channing is a part of your team?
We're excited that Eric is part of our team. He's a tremendous three-point shooter, one of the best that I've coached, and of course, being almost a straight-A student, that helps too.
Hey, Lou, who styles your hair?
Bad question. Hey, there are a lot of other people who don't have a lot of hair, and they comb it and cover, and they don't get the publicity that I do. Dick Vitale started all this years ago. Years ago, we had a Final Four team. All he did is talk about the Lou-do. My mistake was having Lou as a name. Lou-do, it rhymes, so he got it going. Had it been George, it wouldn't have been a problem.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of Sportz-USA, available at our website at sportswithaz-usa.com. And remember to click and favorite so you can join us next time on sportsusa.com.